still continue with the seerah of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Last time we covered Ghazwat Badr, and we talked about how decisive that was, and we talked about how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala positioned Ghazwat Badr around that the Muslims actually wanted something different. The Muslims wanted the caravan, but Allah wanted to make the truth clear. لِيُحِقَّ الْحَقَّ بِكَلِمَاتِهِ. So Allah wanted to make the truth very clear and chose that the battle happens. So in the year after that, which is year 3 of Hijrah, the non-believers, the kuffar of Mecca, wanted to take revenge over what has happened in Badr. So they prepared around 3,000 people strong, and they went to battle the Muslims near Medina. So the Prophet ﷺ learned about kuffar Mecca coming, so he consulted with the companions. They had two options. One option is you stay put in Medina and you defend against Medina. The other option was you go out and meet them outside. The Prophet ﷺ preferred to stay in Medina and defend Medina. He thought ﷺ that this is a better option to defend against Medina. But if you remember, Badr was not really an announced ghazwa. It was not an announced fight. So a lot of companions had missed Badr because, again, there were a group of people, 313 to 319, based on the different kutub of Siyar, that went with the Prophet ﷺ. They thought they're going to face the caravan. It's an easy thing. They can get the caravan and come back. So a lot of companions actually stayed back in Medina and did not go to Badr. So this was for them an opportunity to show that they're truthful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to show themselves and to go out in the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So particularly the youth were of the mind that, you know what, we should go out and meet them. We don't want to just defend Medina, let's go out and meet the non-believers. The Prophet ﷺ went with the majority vote that the people wanted to do, and they went out to Uhud. Uhud is a mountain just right on the outskirts. So they went into to Uhud, and they faced the non-believers there. At the beginning of the battle, the Muslims were victorious. They almost won, and the non-believers were retreating back. What happened is the Prophet ﷺ, if you go there, there is Uhud, the mountain, and then there is a small hill. The Prophet ﷺ had the archers on that hill protecting the back of the Muslims, so that the non-believers cannot go around and attack the Muslims from the back. When the archers saw that the Muslims are victorious and are taking the bounties of the war, some of them decided to go. Their main leader told them to stay put on the tell, on the small mountain, but some of them were just excited and decided to go into the battlefield to take some of those bounties as well. When that happened, Khalid ibn al-Walid, by then was the non-believer, he saw what's going on. He did exactly what the Prophet ﷺ warned them from. He went around the mountain and went and fought the archers and then attacked the Muslims from the back. And that changed the whole dynamic of that ghazwa, and the Muslims were not victorious in that second ghazwa. Now, as we always do, we want to focus on how the Quran talks about that. So I want you first to be in the mindset of this is the second time the Muslims face the people of Mecca in a real fight. The first one, the Muslims won. This is the first time the Muslims don't win that battle. And it's because, one, they had a different opinion than the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ actually wanted to protect Medina and didn't even want to go out. Second is, they disobeyed the Prophet ﷺ and did not follow the commands and did not stay on the small hill to protect the back of the Muslims. So bad consultation plus disobeying the Prophet ﷺ resulted into a loss in the battle. So how does the Quran talk about that fight? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveals an ayah that if you read without knowing the context, you would never say that this ayah is revealed in Uhud because of that battle. Allah says, فَبِمَا رَحْمَةٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ لِنْتَ لَهُمْ. Subhanallah. Remember, this is just, the Muslims had just lost the fight. And Allah reveals ayat that says, with Allah's mercy. With Allah's mercy. Allah is talking about the mercy. With Allah's mercy, you were lean to them. You followed their opinion. فَبِمَا رَحْمَةٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ لِنْتَ لَهُمْ وَلَوْ كُنْتَ فَضًّا غَلِيظَ الْقَلْبِ لَانْفَضُّوا مِنْ حَوْلِكَ. And if you were strong-hearted, harsh on them, they would leave you. Let's just stop here. I want everybody to just reflect on themselves. Just think how you treat your kids. Just think how you treat others. If somebody wrongs you, remember, this is a battle the Muslims had just lost. It's not just a loss. The Muslims lost Hamza radiallahu anhu, the uncle of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Muslims lost so many companions. And Allah says, فَبِمَا رَحْمَةٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ لِنْتَ لَهُمْ. With Allah's mercy, you became soft on them. How do we treat each other when something happens? If somebody wrongs you, if you just had a bad day at work, do you go home and make it a tough day for your wife and your kids because you just need to get the energy out? That's usually what we do. When somebody wrongs you, how do you respond to them? Allah is making us all behave and understand how we should respond. Allah says every time you're going to choose to be merciful to the people around you, specifically when they wrong you, they're going to actually be closer to you. But every time you decide that you're going to take revenge and be harsh on them, they're going to also distance themselves from you. So what is Allah telling us? Allah is telling us, if you're just managing a situation, and I want you to focus on that one because that is critical, and that's what you see in the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ all along. If you're managing just the situation, a loss that has happened in the battle, or your disagreement because something happened at work, if you're managing a situation, the easy way out is just be harsh to people and put the rules and make them follow it, because they will follow the Prophet ﷺ. But if you're trying to build a nation, then mercy is the way to do it. Because you want to win the hearts and minds. You don't just want them to follow you in one command and then start to distance themselves emotionally and mentally from you. And that's what the Prophet ﷺ was doing. The Prophet ﷺ was building a nation. So Allah is telling him, so that we learn, فَبِمَا رَحْمَةٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ لِنْتَ لَهُمْ. With Allah's mercy, you became soft to them. And then Allah says, وَلَوْ كُنْتَ فَضًّا غَلِيظَ الْقَلْبِ لَانْفَضُّوا مِنْ حَوْلِكَ. If you were harsh and your heart was solid on them, they would just leave. So what should the Prophet ﷺ do? Blame them? Don't listen to them next time? Make up your mind because you're the Prophet of Allah ﷺ? No. Allah tells the Prophet ﷺ, فَاعْفُ عَنْهُمْ. Forgive them. Yes, they wronged themselves. Yes, they did something wrong. They disobeyed the Prophet ﷺ. Allah is instructing the Prophet ﷺ and us then, if somebody wrongs us, the first thing we should think about is فَاعْفُ عَنْهُمْ. Forgive them. It's okay. We all make mistakes. When we make mistakes, we want people to forgive us. So Allah is telling us, treat people the way you want to be treated. And treat people, as we said before, the golden rule, the way you want Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to treat you. You want Allah to forgive you? فَاعْفُ عَنْهُمْ. Just that? No. وَاسْتَغْفِرْ لَهُمْ. Subhanallah. It's not just that you make af. You ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive them as well. Just imagine. I really want you to imagine that situation. Just think about somebody that has wronged you in the last week or month. And I'm sure there are a lot that you can think about. Just think about one person that has wronged you in the last week or month. And follow the advice of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Forgive them. And now make dua with your heart that Allah would forgive them. فَاعْفُ عَنْهُمْ وَاسْتَغْفِرْ لَهُمْ. And then what? Remember, we're building a nation. The Prophet ﷺ is building a nation. And continue to consult them. وَشَاوِرْهُمْ فِي الْأَمْرِ. Yes, they gave you wrong advice this time. Perhaps next time they're going to give you good advice. In Badr, they gave good advice. We don't want to open it again, but in Badr, the Prophet ﷺ was camped somewhere else. And a companion came to the Prophet ﷺ and asked him, is this a revelation from Allah? Should we just camp here? Or is this worldly means that you're taking, the Prophet ﷺ? The Prophet ﷺ said, no, this is worldly means. This is my jihad. This is what we think, where I think we should fight. He told the Prophet ﷺ, no, let's fight somewhere else. Let's go to Badr so that we block the water from the non-believers. So this time the advice was not good. Now fast forward, the ghazwa after that, and we're not going to cover it given the short time, but the ghazwa after that, the ghazwa al-Khandaq, just imagine if the Prophet ﷺ was not consulting the companions. In the following ghazwa, the whole idea of the trench came from Salman al-Farisi. Look at how Allah is teaching us, and we see in the footsteps of the Prophet ﷺ how you build the nation. فَاعْفُ عَنْهُمْ وَاسْتَغْفِرْ لَهُمْ وَشَاوِرْهُمْ فِي الْأَمْرِ. Continue to consult them. When you make decisions here in the masjid, don't just make it unilateral. Consult with people around you. فَإِذَا عَزَمْتَ فَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ. As Muslims, we don't keep second guessing ourselves. When if you have consulted people and you reach the conclusion, then push full force. Because when you start to second guess yourself and talk to so many doubters, you're always going to fall short and not do what you want. خلاص, if you consulted and Allah blessed you with the decision, then فَإِذَا عَزَمْتَ فَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ. Then you rely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and you push full force. So again, we learn from Ghazwat Uhud that one, there will be hiccups that will happen in our lives. There will be situations that are tough. But if we're just thinking of the moment itself, our response would most likely be suboptimal. We need to think about the longer term. And we need to think that we're dealing with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we always need to be thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We need to forgive the people around us. We need to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive them. And we need to continue to consult with one another. Because we're one ummah. And our collective wisdom will be better than one's wisdom every time. Even if sometimes it's going to be wrong. But overall, over the journey of building the ummah, our collective wisdom would be better. So again, Allah says, فَبِمَا رَحْمَةٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ لِنْتَ لَهُمْ وَلَوْ كُنْتَ فَضًّا غَلِيظَ الْقَلْبِ لَانْفَضُّوا مِنْ حَوْلِكَ فَاعْفُ عَنْهُمْ وَاسْتَغْفِرْ لَهُمْ وَشَاوِرْهُمْ فِي الْأَمْرِ فَإِذَا عَزَمْتَ فَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ إِنَّ اللَّهَ يُحِبُّ الْمُتَوَكِّلِينَ. So let's make sure that that should be how we deal with one another and how we deal with our shortcomings and hiccups that happen to all of us. And when somebody wrongs us, let's be the best person we can be and let's forgive them. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive all of us, elevate our ranks. اللهم اغفر لنا ذنوبنا وإسرافنا في أمرنا وثبت أقدامنا وانصرنا على القوم الكافرين. ربنا اغفر لنا ولإخواننا الذين سبقونا بالإيمان ولا تجعل في قلوبنا غلا للذين آمنوا ربنا إنك رؤوف رحيم. اللهم إنا نسألك من خير ما سألك منه نبيك محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم ونعوذ بك من شر ما استعاذك منه نبيك محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. ربنا هب لنا من أزواجنا وذرياتنا قرة أعين واجعلنا للمتقين إماما. اللهم انصر اخواننا المستضعفين في فلسطين. اللهم انصر اخواننا المستضعفين في فلسطين. اللهم انصر اخواننا المستضعفين في فلسطين. واخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد اجمعين.